Hey Pirates, I'm here to read the last four chapters of The Wild Robot. Really excited to read this for you guys. I'm really excited to find out what happens at the end. I do not know. I have not read it yet. So I've been reading it along with you, and so here we go. Chapter 77, The Meeting. Strong, nimble creatures carried Roz up the sea cliffs and across the island. They carefully propped her up inside the nest. They built a fire, and then they left the robot with her son. Roz and Bright Bill sat there, staring at the flames until the goose finally said, "Do you need anything, Ma?" "I could really use some new arms and legs." The robot chuckled at her own bad joke. "That isn't funny," cried the goose. "My mother is broken and I don't know what to do about it." "I'm sorry for joking." Roz adjusted her voice to a more serious tone. "I know you want to fix me, but there is nothing anyone here can do." At these words her son looked away. "Bright Bill, I'm afraid we have different decisions to make. I think you should arrange a meeting of our closest friends. We could use their advice." The goose disappeared out the door, and soon Roz's oldest and wisest friends were on their way. Loudwing was the first to arrive. She limped into the lodge on her injured foot and sat close to her robot friend. Mr. Beaver appeared next, followed by Fink and Swooper. Then Tawny curled up on the floor. Mother Bear was too badly hurt to make the journey, so Nettle came in her place. She sat in the garden with her enormous head jutting in through the doorway. Bright Bill returned with Chit Chat, who was nursing her burned tail. The last one to crawl in was Crag, the old turtle. Once everyone was there, the meeting began. The group talked all through the night. They discussed the RECOs. They discussed what to do about Roz. They discussed how to keep the island safe. There were stark differences of opinion, and tempers flared, but by daybreak the group had agreed to a plan of action. That morning the dawn truce didn't take place in the great meadow. Instead, it took place in a small meadow by the foot of the mountain, in front of the airship. Weary animals quietly hobbled into the clearing. The only sounds came from a gurgling brook that wound through the gathering right past our robot. Roz sat in the wet grass. She was leaning against a rock. She looked so sad and frail. However, she still had her thoughts and her words, and for the moment, that was all she needed. "Good morning, animals of the island." Roz's voice filled the meadow. "I must look strange to you, all beaten up like this, but I hope I still sound like your old friend." Hundreds of heads nodded. "You fought bravely yesterday. You risked your lives defending me, and I am eternally grateful. But many of our friends were wounded. Some may never recover, and there is worse news. Before the last RECO died, he told me that more of his kind will come to our island. They might already be on the move, and even if we defeat them, still more will come. My makers will not rest until all their poverty has been retrieved. They want the dead robots. They want the broken parts. They want me." The crowd was silent. "But I care about this island far too much to put any more lives in danger, and so, my friends, I must leave." And voices cried out, "Don't go, Roz. Next time, we'll be prepared. We risked our lives so you could stay." "I hear you," the robot's voice cut through the din. "But look at me. My body is ruined, and the RECO said the only ones who can help me are my makers." "What if he lied?" howled a voice. "You can't trust those monsters." "You are right," said Roz. "He might have been lying. There may be no hope for me, but that is a chance I have to take. Animals, you taught me to be wild. I want to be wild again, and so I must try to get the repairs I need. It is for the good of me and the island that I return to my makers." Oh my. The calm settled over the crowd. They knew Roz was right. Chapter 78 is called The Farewell. A robot had an army of animals at her command, and she asked them to bring every robot part and rifle back to the airship. Absolutely everything had to go. It was the only way to be sure that the RECOs would never come back. The island animals had no trouble locating the remains of the dead robots. Retrieving those remains took a bit more energy, but they were up to the challenge. Teams of clever creatures returned with robot parts of different shapes and sizes. Smashed heads and broken rifles and twisted tubes and heavy bodies were all loaded into the ship until the entire island had been cleared. Even the tiniest scraps were collected. It's amazing what an army of animals can do. A light mist was falling when they finally heaved Roz through the ship's doorway. Her head slowly turned to the face of the crowd of geese and beavers and owls and insects and foxes and raccoons and vultures and moose and bears and opossums and fish and deer and otters and turtles and woodpeckers and squirrels and frogs and hares and on and on. Every animal on the island had come to give the robot a proper send-off. "Goodbye, you wild animals," Roz's voice echoed through the gray mist. The wild animals smiled, and a few of them started to roar, and then more started to screech, and soon more howling and chirping and grunting. Soon every creature was hollering goodbye to Roz. The chorus of wild voices grew louder and louder, shaking the robot's body, rattling the ship, booming across the island and up into the clouds, and then their voices gradually died to a silence. Brightbill fluttered up to his mother's shoulder. "You understand why I must leave," said the robot. "I understand," sniffled the goose. "More RECOs could be headed here right now. I just do not know. There is so much I do not know. I think it is time I will get some answers." "Will I ever see you again?" said Brightbill, wiping his eyes. "You are my son, and this is my home," said Roz. "I will do everything in my power to return." And Brightbill hugged his mother's worn face. Aww. "I love you, Mama. I love you, son." The goose fluttered back to his flock, and the robot took one last look at her home. And then the door hummed closed. Chapter 79 is called The Departure. The airship's engines automatically fired up, and then the ship slowly floated above the island, turned to the south, and disappeared into the clouds. There's the spaceship. There's the island. There's the spaceship. And then chapter 80. To the end. It's called The Sky. Our story ends in the sky, where a robot was being whisked away from the only home she had ever known. As Roz sat in the airship, broken and alone and speeding towards a mysterious future, she looked back at her miraculous past. Okay, reader, it must seem impossible that our robot could have changed so much. Maybe the RECOs were right. Maybe Roz really was defective, and some glitch in her programming had caused her to accidentally become a wild robot. Or maybe Roz was designed to think and learn and change. She had simply done those things better than anyone could have imagined. However it happened, Roz felt lucky to have lived such an amazing life. And every moment had been recorded in her computer brain. Even her earliest memories were perfectly clear. She would still see the sun shining through the gash in her crate. She could still hear the waves crashing against the shore. She could still smell the salt water and the pine trees. Would she ever see and hear and smell those things again? Would she ever again climb a mountain or build a bridge or play with a goose? Not just a goose, a son. Brightbill had been Roz's son from the moment she picked up his egg. She had saved him from certain death, and then he had saved her. He was the reason Roz had lived so well for so long. And if she wanted to continue living, if she wanted to be wild again, she needed to be with her family and her friends on her island. So, as Roz raced through the sky, she began computing a plan. She would get the repairs she needed. She would escape from her new life, and she would find her way back home. That is the end, everybody. So actually the story ends with a possible new beginning. We do not know. So thank you so much for reading this book with me. Wow, what an incredible book. And so I hope you enjoyed it, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and go Pirates.